Okay, this is just an impromptu stream. I'm waiting to see if anybody is up and about and wants to chat. I don't know if anybody even knows I'm on yet, so we're going to wait and see. But in the meantime, I didn't know if anyone was listening. But there's been a few things that have been on my mind lately, and I didn't know if anybody wanted to discuss something that's been on their mind. I'll give it a few more minutes to see if somebody comes in, and then I'll see what we have to talk about. Let me put the link out there. Let's see. Okay, my headphones are doing something crazy. Okay, so there's something I've been trying to figure out. I've been doing a genealogical search, and I've been working on my family tree through Ancestry.com. And I've noticed that a lot of the older census forms don't list race. And one of the census forms that's connected to my family lists TI as race. And in that case, I think it has to do with a tribe of Native Americans down in Florida, and I can't pronounce the name properly. I'm going to do a stream on that later. But I just wondered if anybody else has run into something like this. There's also a situation where I have two family members who are listed as brothers whose birthdays, the dates of the year they were born are the same year, but the birth dates are only months apart. So I'm thinking we need to track down there's a mistake somewhere or some misinformation. So there lies the mystery. Was this intentional or was it a mistake, like a typo? Typo in air quotes. Hi, Elsie. It's good to have you here. Let me see if I can get you on here. I am doing pretty well lately. How about you? Okay, yeah, chatting is fine. Yeah, chatting is fine. Yeah, it was just an impromptu type thing, and I couldn't sleep, and I had some things going on in my brain, and I just figured I'd air it out and see if anybody else is awake and about. It's good to see you. I miss seeing you in other live streams. Oh yeah, I just overthink everything, and I was working on some genealogy on my family tree, and I found some conundrums in trying to work it out in my brain. Because one of the things I was looking for is proof of our racial profiles and see if we are registered with any tribes, if the information I was given is correct. And haven't had a whole lot of luck with that, but I found out that a lot of people of Native American descent would often classify themselves as white because Native Americans weren't given a right to vote until well after um, Black Americans were. So I'm doing a little research on that, and I have a friend that's supposed to help me with that. Yeah, you're always busy with real world stuff because you actually have a life. You have a, a job and you have friends and you have family and you have a relationship and real life priorities that a lot of people either don't have or don't take care of, but you do. So I can imagine you've been pretty busy. Yeah, things are going good for me on the most part. Nothing exciting. I did find out something very funny the other day, though. I realized that a certain live stream that we both used to go into has a low they stream almost every day, but they have a sorry, lower rating than I do at the moment. Oh yeah, I forgot about you being in school too, on top of everything else. I couldn't think of the name of the site, but it's Social Blade. I'm at like a C plus and they're like at a D minus or something like that, and I noticed that they're bleeding viewers and well, views at least. I'm enough of a bitch that where I think it's funny. I don't wish anybody any physical harm, but I think the ratings thing is funny. Stupid Mike. Right now, I'm sitting in a recliner close to an open screen, listening to it rain on the lake and listening to the frogs. We've discovered we've got a pair of red-shouldered hawks nesting in one of the trees. We have some Canadian geese that like to come out on the left. I believe we have at least one pair of owls that are nesting. Never really knew who. I'm gonna give up on this mic for just a minute. It's easier to type because of the delay. Hi, how are you?
Hey, good, good. Elsie's just in the kitchen doing duck food. She's got to get her hands around chicken hearts and stuff, and it's doing her head in.
Ah,
How you travelling?
I'm doing well. Are you hearing me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I was telling her I'm just sitting here. I'm in a recliner next to a area, screened in area, and I can hear the frogs and the birds out on the lake. And we've discovered we have some red-shouldered hawks here in nesting in the yard. I think we have at least one pair of owls, and we have some visiting Canadian geese out on the lake.
Oh, if they're visiting, it's they have to bring the wine, right?
Right, exactly. Or an appetizer.
Well, yeah, exactly. They have to bring some culture to the table.
Absolutely. Some poutine or something.
Exactly.
No, but I was telling her that I've been a little bit nosy and I checked on Social Blade, and a certain live stream that goes on almost every day has a lower Social Blade rating than I do.
Well, to be honest, he's about as social as an animated corpse.
Yeah. And I was saying, they can say what they want to, but they are not the same way that they were when I first joined that stream.
Oh hell no, not even a little bit.
No. He is much more manic, and she is just cranky. I mean, I don't know if she's going through the change, like going through menopause or something, but she complains about, even before she got ill, it's like all she ever does is complain. Well, I don't, to be fully transparent, I don't watch all of their stuff. I pop in and I clip through it every now and then, but I haven't seen anything that is any different from the streams I've seen previous. Basically, they're just complaining about stuff
Yeah,
and
it's a
making.
win.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's a whingeathon.
Yeah.
It's been that way a while now.
Oh, wait. To be fair, they talk about food a lot.
Oh,
That's 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 about it. Um,
being one-eyed and all that sort of stuff.
yeah. I
Apparently,
mean,
that's a thing.
I look at their titles more than I actually listen, and sometimes I'll go through and I'll put on closed captions and then skip around and look at chat, and I'm like, uh, no wonder. No wonder the only people that go in, it's the same handful of people all the time talking about the same stuff, as far as I can tell. And even when they show clips about things like trying to do the same thing he used to do, he's like with the auditors and things, he's months behind everybody else. It's like nothing is new.
Oh no, hell no. Because that would require someone to actually be going out and finding material.
And Shelley used to do that for him for a while.
Yeah, and now she can't.
Right.
Um, although, the way I understand it, she got sick and he went on a sex tour of America. So
He went on some kind of tour. I thought he might be running from the law because he seemed to be zigzagging. Because
yeah, I had that thought too.
so I think there's a story there. I just don't care enough to figure it out.
Yeah, I'm with you. Um, I have zero time for him. I'm too busy at work anyway, so like I've got more important stuff in my life than some two-bit loser.
Yeah. I mean, I've got it pretty easy right now. At the moment, now that we've moved in and gotten settled and everything, my husband has finals in a couple of weeks in school, and I've been working on some genealogy stuff, which is very frustrating because I found out a lot of the census polls that were taken pre. 1900 don't even list some of the stuff I'm looking for.
Oh, awesome.
And then some of my relatives have conflicting dates of birth and things like that, so I'm not sure who is who, and a lot of very common names in my family. Because part of the purpose was to trace my not genetic, but racial history back to the native side of the family. But from what I found out, Native Americans didn't have the right to vote till quite a bit later after the black people got their right to vote.
Yeah.
And so it was common to pass as white whenever possible in order to own property.
Ah, righto.
Which is a lot of the same things that some of the black folk did, which is understandable. But yeah, I mean, so it's a little frustrating when you're trying to prove something to yourself to see if all the family stories are true, and you can't find the evidence because they were doing what they had to do for themselves back then.
Yeah, because no one makes a decision based on, what's going to be going on 200 years in the future.
Right. And then there's over in the auditor, not really the watchdog community, but the auditor commentary community, there's a big stink because somebody was making a fuss about Catnap's GoFundMe that Virgo put up, and they started a whole bunch of crap with Virgo, and it was totally unnecessary and totally out of spite.
Because that's what people do.
Yeah, because they don't have real lives.
No, which is why they, act like YouTube's the be all and end all of existence.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was telling somebody. It's like I get a little bit too involved sometimes, and I get frustrated, like last summer. But ultimately, what I do is I say my piece, and if it gets too much, I turn it off and walk away.
Yeah, there's no point proving yourself to be a big dick if you can just go, you know what, I don't care.
Yeah, like somebody said that they ended up losing their job because somebody was trolling them at their job. They're a salesperson, and they kept calling and calling and calling to the point where the boss basically said, this can't go on. You need to try to do something about it. And he ended up losing his job. And ironically, it's caused by people who don't have jobs.
Yes.
Who, not because they can't get them, some of them, it's because they don't want to have them. Their quote unquote jobs are running around with a camera phone annoying other people.
Who have jobs.
Right.
Yeah. See, when it comes to like trolling and all that sort of crap, I cut my teeth on the Facebook trolling before it was a thing.
Right.
And the basic rule is you never go real life.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter how much someone's pissing you off, you never go real life. But nowadays, people are trying to destroy other people's lives.
Exactly. And I don't do that in real personal conflicts. I don't do that. Like I said, I will say my piece, try to resolve it, and if I can't, I walk away from it. 9 times out of 10. Yep. What's the point in causing more harm when there's no upside?
Exactly.
It's like I've had conflicts. I was having this discussion with my husband today. I've had conflicts with other people in the past in my real life and everything. And over time, we've become cordial again. But that doesn't mean I want them to be my best friends. I let it go. I let it go and move ahead. I just don't dwell on it anymore.
Well, you can't because it grabs you and it pulls you down, and it will forever pull you down. Even if you've done something, like even if you walk away, If they don't stop what they're doing, it will drag you down. So you need both sides to like put on their big people pants and move forward.
Right. And we're in a place in our lives now where when my husband and I met, we were both broke. He was a little more broke than me because most of his money went to his kids. He was not yet divorced, but he was separated, and I knew enough of his wife to know that he was telling the truth. And a matter of fact, our first date, I asked him out and paid for the date and everything, and he was reluctant to do so. But I'm like, well, this are the circumstances. It is what it is. Let me do this, and later on, you can do it for me. And that's how we started dating. And of course, after a while, he was able to take me out, et cetera, et cetera. Over the years, he struggled and sacrificed, worked more than one job at a time. I mean, at one time, he had a full time job, a part time job, and was in the National Guard uh, every month and 2 weeks in the summer and that kind of thing. And I was doing what I could, but I just didn't have the skills or the physical ability to earn what he did. But I did what I could. We both sacrificed and worked to get where we are now. So we want to enjoy what we have. So we are minimizing drama in our
That
lives.
sounds man.
Like right now, my son is in a position where he could be doing a lot better. He's not doing everything he should be doing under his circumstance. And we're like, you know what? That's, if you were in dire need, we'd be there for you. But you're a big boy, take care of business. You know, you have to learn how to do it yourself.
Yep. If you're going to half-ass it, you're on your own. If
Yeah.
things go south, we're there, but have fun.
Right. It's not like he's a teenager. He's 25.
Yeah.
So, we set him up to a point where he can be more independent and everything. He has to maintain it himself, sink or swim on his own.
Yep. See,
When
my kids are 14 and 10,
hmm
and they have zero coping skills. Like I get them once a month, sometimes once a fortnight for the weekend, and my kids cannot do anything for themselves. I'm slowly teaching the oldest one to cook, but it's a thing. Like I'm nobody's maid,
Right. So that's the thing. When I was growing up, I had two sisters. I'm the middle daughter, and my mother taught us how to cook, how to do laundry, how to clean, do all that stuff. My father taught us how to check the oil in a car, change a tire. We helped him with, when he redid the home, the repaneling and all that other stuff. We helped him with that. We did yard work. We did boy chores, we did girl chores. And when I finally did have a brother, when my dad remarried, same kind of thing. He taught my brother how to work on cars and this, that, and the other. But he also taught him how to do laundry, how to cook, how to balance a checkbook, all that stuff. So
the whole the whole economic side should be taught at school. It's all well and
yes,
good for parents teaching their kids how to balance the budget, how to balance a checkbook, how to deal with the tax office. But school should be doing their part too. It's all well and good to teach a kid to play a recorder, but using that in the real world isn't really a thing. If a kid's got musical talent and they want to express it, they'll do it after school.
yeah. When I graduated high school, I wasn't ready for college, and I didn't have any real marketable skills. But I took business math and I took business English, so I at least knew how to fill out an order form or a bill of lading, something like that. And I knew how to properly make out a resume. Some places they call it a CV. So I had a little bit of knowledge to start with, but I also had the drive to go up to what a place called, we call it Department of Labor. I don't know what, place where they help you find jobs and point you in the right direction. They have job listings and all that kind of stuff. A job
Yeah,
center.
here they call work. What are they called? Employment providers.
Right. And when I was in between jobs, I would go up there and I even, had them proofread my resume to make sure I didn't have any spelling errors. They helped me make it more succinct, word it better. Um, Later on, that worked in my favor because when I did quit a job out of frustration, they knew already that I was having issues with that job and that I was already looking for another job. So it didn't take me long to find another one because I didn't quit until I was planning on waiting a little bit longer, but it didn't take me long to find a job because of that. And I ended up working for a temp agency, and a couple of those jobs went long term, and I got a lot of good experience from that led to a more permanent job. So any job is a good job because if it teaches you nothing else, it teaches you what you don't want to do in the future.
Well, exactly. Like the job, I'm working two jobs at the moment, and one of the jobs I've just been made interim manager,
That's
which is
awesome.
all well and good, but I want that put on my payslip
Yes.
because I've had so many jobs in the past where I've been. I used to have a boss who introduced me as his warehouse manager, but it wasn't on my payslip, so I can't put it down.
Right.
So I'm making sure this time I get the manager part put on my payslip.
Yeah. Well, that's what I would put on a resume as acting manager, which I've done a little bit of because I worked at one job where we didn't have a manager for a short time. So I just did what the manager would do until we got a new one. So that was, but the last job I had, it worked against me because I did not want to go into management because being older, I didn't want to devote all my time to my job. And at that particular job, it was almost a 24/7 job to be a manager. You had to be available on call at all times. And I didn't want a job like that. You
Oh
know,
hell no!
I wanted to go in, do what I'm supposed to do. And when I'm off work, I want to be off work, you know.
Yes.
But if you're working your way up into something better, that's a great job for a younger person who wants that skill and experience and everything. But it kind of worked against me that I didn't want to go into management. But in this company, they want more managers because it allows them to open more stores quicker.
Yep.
So, I mean, I don't regret having the job, but I was glad when I left.
I've had jobs like that.
Yeah.
Because the plan for me is to open up my counselling practice,
Yeah.
so I can help people to be better them.
Yes.
Um, it's kind of a selfish motivation. I want less people to be annoying me.
Uh, Good motivation.
Oh, it's a great motivation, but it's people. Australia is I don't know how it is in the States, but in Australia, um, mental health is brushed under the carpet.
Yes. Still is here. It's getting better, but it still is.
Well, we have Medicare. I don't know if Elsie's told you much about Medicare, and it's our socialist health system.
Right.
Now you still have the option to pay your way through the health system, or you can go through the Medicare system, which is slower. Right. So psychologists get bulk billed, right? So they get a Medicare provider number. So if you go in for a session, they swipe your Medicare card, it gets bulk billed. you have no out-of-pocket expense.
Right.
As a counsellor, I can't get a Medicare provider number.
You have to be a licensed therapist for that?
You have to be a psychologist because apparently a counsellor, even though I have qualifications and have done courses, isn't enough to be classed as a medical professional.
Right. See, over here, almost anybody can call themselves a therapist or a counselor, but a qualified counselor or a licensed counselor or a licensed therapist is something different. But a lot of people don't check the credentials before putting their money on the table.
Yeah, the ones without credentials here are called life coaches.
Right. Well, they have those here too, but that's usually for rich people.
Yeah. Yes, the life coaches here are they're unqualified, and they don't need to be accredited by anyone.
Right.
Which
Well,
is
it's like
scary.
over here, the short version of basically in my area, we have like a mental health center. You get seen by a psychiatrist once every blue moon to qualify you for services and to write any prescriptions if you need them. And then usually a psychologist or a licensed therapist will see you on a regular basis. Medicare here is basically primarily for disabled and elderly, but there are other forms of social health care like Medicaid and private insurance and different things. Under my insurance, I have Medicare for disability, and I can either see a licensed psychologist 6 times a year or a social worker 12 times a year
Oh, yep.
without
So it's
any
an
out of
either or
pocket.
thing.
Yeah. But I'm not currently seeing any, but I have in the past been to therapists and stuff. And I tell people, I started going because I was going through a situation in my family and I was falling apart and I didn't feel like I was being the mother that I needed to be for my child. I needed to hold myself together to be a mom, to take care of my daughter the way, because I was, losing my stuff, talking about mentally.
Yep.
So I went to therapy for her. But while I was there, I started doing it for me. And it was the best thing I ever did for myself. And I had a couple of crappy counselors along the way, but I've had some also really good ones. My favorite one was a no nonsense woman who told me, she said it a lot nicer than this, but basically said, it's all well and good for you to come in here and tell me what your problems are. But my question to you is, what are you going to do about it? Because if you just want somebody to cry to, go see your mom. But if you want to work on your issues and get better, I will work with you and I will help you the best I can to be a balanced person. You know, she was much more professional in the way she said it, but that's basically what she said. I'll do everything I can to help you, but you got to do the work.
Yep. That's how it is. If I, as a counsellor, fix your problems, you've learnt nothing.
Exactly.
So I can give you the tools to help yourself, but in the end, it's all you.
Right. In fact, one of them taught me, some people, she called it self-hypnosis, but it seems to me like it's more like meditation. But she taught me how to do things that without medication, in a pinch, I could ease my anxiety all by myself and actually use it for pain control as well. And that has helped me over the years. I still do it to this day, and that was 30 years ago. And I mean, it doesn't work for everybody, but it works enough for me to where if I have an issue and I do need medication, I can deal with it until I get to a professional who tells me, okay, this is what you need.
Yep.
But I try not to take any more medication than I have to, you know. So right now, all I'm on is blood pressure medication, but I'm trying to get off that with diet and exercise. So
Yeah, I'm on the blood pressure medication as well. My blood pressure was 186 on 130
Holy shit.
before medication, and now
Because it's supposed to be the other way around, isn't it?
now it's 118 on
the top's
81.
supposed to be less than the
No.
bottom? Oh,
120 on 80 is normal.
right.
Mine at the moment's 118 on 81.
So
well,
it's
I don't remember my numbers, but I went to check up a month or so ago, and she said my pressure was good then. But she switched my medication to a new one because she said I'd been on the old one for so long that she just didn't want to build up an immunity or, you know, a tolerance to it. And I haven't had any issue with the new one. So, and that's another thing a lot of people don't stop and think about, you know, is you can build up a tolerance to some medications, but that doesn't necessarily mean you need to take more. Sometimes it just means you need to take something different.
Yes, which is why we have a thing here for generics. So you'll go in with your prescription, and the chemist will ask you whether you want the generic one. Which, if you're on the healthcare card, it's going to cost you $6.60 whether you get the generic one or the named brand. Right? Now, it's good sometimes to say no, I don't want the generic one, because you're still getting the same stuff. It's just made in a different place.
Right.
And the body then can't build that tolerance to it.
Yeah.
It's a great theory anyway.
Well, I've been pretty lucky. I've had a lot of medical issues in the past 10 years, but none of them have been so bad that I couldn't tolerate it. I mean, I've had a couple of cancer situations, but I was lucky they were early, and I had some treatment, but I didn't have to have the radical treatment that some people have to go through. I mean, I'm not in the best of health as far as the way I take care of myself. I don't do everything I should properly, but I try to live a balanced life. I eat what I want, but if I want to have, you know, a dessert or something extra, I'm going to cut back on something else, you know.
Yeah.
So I try to balance it out instead of just doing anything and everything just because I want to.
Yeah, it's about moderation.
Right. Common sense.
Hey, that's like a superpower.
It's like I hear some of these people on YouTube talking about, well, I'm fat because of this and I'm fat because of that. And I tell people, I'm fat because I consume more calories than I burn. Period.
Mine's a weird one. I'm not fat because of overeating. I'm fat because of undereating and eating the wrong stuff.
I was going to say that.
I used to eat once a day.
And that's not good for your metabolism.
Right? No. And then I'd eat like fatty foods. So the body just goes, well, grab all this and hold on to it.
Right.
So it wasn't that I was like eating massive amounts or anything. It was just I was eating the wrong time and the wrong stuff.
And that's what I've tried to tell people before. That was one of my issues is sometimes I forget to eat. Now you look, I'm obviously a heavier woman. But when you skip meals, it slows your metabolism. One of my doctors explained that to me before. Whenever I started, at once I turned 40, and my metabolism slowed down and everything. And they, were talking to me about it, and they said, and male and female, as you age, your hormones will change how they act. So that has an effect. wear and tear on your body, and sometimes you're not as active as you used to be. That's going to have an effect. There's a lot of things in play there. So it's not, like you said, it's not necessarily because you're overeating. Sometimes it's what you eat, sometimes it's how often, and sometimes, like, matter of fact, for a while I was eating 6 times a day, but I was eating small amounts 6 times a day.
Yeah.
So I'd have like some or something here, and then a bowl of oatmeal there, and then a sandwich there. I wasn't eating 6 full meals, but I was spreading it out through the day, so I never got really hungry, and my metabolism leveled out a little bit better.
Yeah.
So
And that's the way I eat breakfast now, which is one of those things I've never done. I used to get up, go to work, like sometimes I'd be at work from 4 a.m. to 3 p.m. and not eat. And then I'd get home and there'd be stuff I'd have to do at home, and then I'd eat a dinner, and then I'd go to bed a couple of hours later.
Right.
And everything about that's wrong.
Yep. It took me a while to figure out, okay, I'm not in my 20s anymore, and I've had a couple of kids, and I've got all these issues because of not taking care of my body when I was young. It's catching up to me when I'm older, so I had to slow down, and I had to learn to live smarter. And as far as the way I look, number one, my husband likes fuller figured women, and number two, even if he didn't, he says it's my body. It's only part of who I am. Therefore, how I look is not the most important thing. He just happens to like the way I look. But aside from that, I like that he likes how I look, and I don't care what anybody else thinks.
Yeah.
But he told me, if you will feel better, thinner, then you should do that for yourself, if that's what you want to do. It's like, I have really long hair, and he likes it long, and I like it long. But he told me, because I asked him one time, would it make a big deal if I cut my hair off? He said, it's your hair.
Exactly. That's what I tell Elsie all the time. It's like, I don't get a say in what you do with your body. I can say what I would like,
right?
But if you don't do it, that's your decision. I don't get a say. It's just that the dog's inside and they've just run mud through the house, I think.
Oh, okay. I thought she was talking to you.
Oh, she does that a lot too.
No, but yeah, I mean, like I said, he likes me the way I am. But like I said, if I decide to change something, he said, I'm still his wife. I'm still me. Because we had that discussion years ago when I got my first surgery scar, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna, you're not gonna be attracted to me because of this. He said, that's just skin. I didn't fall in love with your skin,
That's exactly right. Sure, I can no longer make you into a couch, but I still love
you. Well, there's a song by a band called 6 a.m. I'm sure you're familiar with Motley Crue.
Yes.
Nikki Sixx, the bass player from Motley Crue, has a band, or I guess they're still together. But everybody in the band 6 a.m. also has side projects. So, but there's a song they have. It's like a ballad. It's called Skin, and it's about one of the lines is, they don't even know you, all they see is scars. And somebody else had said to one of my friends who had scars from surgeries and stuff, said, a scar is just a sign that you've had a life, that you've done something in your life. Nobody who doesn't have most people who don't have any scars have not lived a full life.
Exactly. Scars. Behind every scar is a story.
Yeah. I also have a theory, but that beneath every addiction is a scar, whether physical or emotional or both or mental. Scratch an addiction, you'll find a scar. That's my theory, because most addictions don't come out of nowhere unless you have a genetic predisposition, and even then that's no guarantee, you know. But yeah, I had aspirations of being a counselor at one time myself. In case you can't tell. I started taking classes in psychology, and then that got interrupted by real life because I had two kids and a job and everything else. And I thought about going back, but at this point in my life, I would never get to use it professionally, probably, but it still intrigues me. I still like to study people and why they are the way they are, because if we can understand why we do what we do, we can change the negative aspects. Well, not change, not erase them, but we can improve them in many ways.
We can. The thing is, so people need to be able to look at themselves objectively, and that's a skill that we've lost.
Right. Even if you in therapy or something, medication is not a cure. It's a tool.
It is.
I
It
mean,
is.
if your
Antidepressants
issue,
are a part of a process. They're not they're not a cure.
right. And I have this thing. Well, I found out over the years there's an abundance of anxiety and depression, at least on my mother's side of the family. And most of the older generation, it was like the doctor would say, "Here, you have this problem, here's a pill." And they just took it, no questions, because the doctor said so. And in my case, it was like, "Here's a pill." And I'm like, "What's it for? What does it do? How long am I supposed to take it? And what else do I need to do?" You know, and my goal was never on depending on the medication to fix me. It was, I hope this medication will help me get to a point where I can work on fixing myself. So there may be a genetic predisposition, but there are also things I can do. Like I said, the meditation, avoiding this, avoiding situations, avoiding whatever, avoiding alcohol, avoiding chemicals. You know, what works for me is not going to work for everybody, but that was my thing. Yeah.
It's about being able to know what works for you, and we've become as a society in the West, anyway, very much there's this God complex around doctors, whereas I personally believe a doctor should never prescribe antidepressants.
A mental health professional is.
Yeah.
It should be, we are sending you to this mental health professional. The mental health professional sends back a review, and then the prescription can be written on the advice of the mental health professional.
Right, like with my son, he had ADHD. Well, he has ADHD. Now, he came into my life when he was 5 years old, when I met his dad. But he is my son as far as I'm concerned. I just didn't give birth to him. But he had a lot of issues, and we found out that part of it was frustration because he was going through a lot in his life. His parents were getting divorced. There were new people involved. There was other stuff going on in the family, and nobody was telling the kids what was going on. So he was angry, and he couldn't verbally express himself well. So he was angry and frustrated. He didn't know what was going on. He didn't know how to say, "I'm angry." He just knew how to show he was angry. Eventually, we got him to go to therapy. Then we went to a behavioral therapist that not only worked with him but worked with us on better ways to parent. And ultimately, he learned coping skills instead of just medication. He also learned coping skills. Now, along with that, they suggested that we have a PET scan done. And it may be called something different. Maybe it's
No, it's called a PET scan.
okay. So you know what that's for and what it's about and everything. And he also had a head injury, a frontal lobe head injury when he was a toddler. So we, these things, I will say that it was the school system, his therapist, and his pediatrician, and us all working together as a team. It wasn't just one person making all these decisions. We consulted each other. We talked about it and everything. We involved him in some of it. But his mother never would sign off on some of the things, and I didn't have the capability of doing it because I wasn't married to his dad at the beginning of it. And then later, his pediatrician wouldn't sign off on the PET scan because she was going into this natural health phase. And by the time we found another pediatrician, he had gone back to stay with his mother for a while. And it became a struggle. So, we never did get a clear diagnosis of what was going on with him. Now he's 25. He wants to be 16. He wants to act like he's 16, but be treated like an adult. And I told him, I want you to go back to the therapist, see the doctor and the therapist, see if medication will help. But even if you do get medication, it's not going to fix you. You fix you. Well, when I say fix you, I mean fix the things that's going on that need improvement. I said it might help you focus if you need it, but everything else is up to you. Like I told him, this can be a tool, but you have to do the work. And he's willing to do it until it comes time to get it done. And that's when I had to say, you know what? It's out of my control. He's an adult. I can't make him do anything he doesn't want to do. He has to want it for himself.
Yep. Take up a craft. Make him a basket that says too hard and just give it.
Well, the biggest problem now is that he's got a baby coming this summer. So I'm going to have one more heart-to-heart with him and say, now's the time to make the adult decisions.
Yeah, because it doesn't get easier.
Because his dad and I have already told him, if you mess up and you are not as involved in this baby's life as you want to be, because they plan on getting married and all this stuff, they're a couple. I said, but if you mess up, we are going to be in that baby's life in some form or fashion. We're going to be there to support the mom and the baby and everything. You can decide if you're involved in all that or not. We're going to do what we're supposed to do as grandparents. We can't make you do what you're supposed to do as a father.
No.
But he can never say he didn't have positive male role models, because he had multiple positive male role models in his life. So.
Yep. So.
I do get frustrated sometimes when people say, well, your mama must not have raised you right because you do this, that, and the other. No, my mom raised me very well. And so, pretty much my parents did a good job, I think. But I didn't always follow what they taught me. So that's on me. It took me a long time to realize they were right and I wasn't. I'm sorry, I interrupted you earlier.
Oh, no, it's all good. I was just showing Elsie message I got from my ex-wife. she is blaming me for him packing his bag and taking some of my stuff home. See, I'm a firm believer that a kid, especially a 14-year-old, should be able to do most everything. Where, like, when I was 6, I was able to cook a meal because my mum was at best negligent, at worst abusive. No, to give you this an example, she broke a chair over my back once.
Oh, Jesus.
One of those metal chairs. She broke a metal chair over my back and then beat me for breaking the chair.
First husband had parents had a father like that. I won't say parents, but had a father like that. And I can't say I understand it completely, but I know what it can do to a person.
And she spent most of her time laying on a bed reading Mills and Boone. And my dad was at work because he was a paramedic. So he didn't get much time away from work.
Right.
So I learned to cook early. I was cooking like toast at the age of 3. Because if I didn't make my own food, I didn't eat.
Right.
And so I want my kids to be able to do stuff for themselves because I'm not going to always be there.
Right.
There'll be times when they'll have to pick up themselves. My 14-year-old has a girlfriend he's been with for 3 years. And I always say to him, when you guys move in together, is she going to be the one picking up for you?
Right.
Because I guarantee she won't be.
Well, not for long.
Well, I was an adult before I got a younger brother. So my father's focus on us girls was never be with somebody for what they can do for you. Be able to do it for yourself, like you said. You know, don't depend on other people.
Exactly.
And I mean, my dad. I'm
You're
sorry.
right. You're right.
My dad was kind of harsh. He was a little strict, I guess you'd say. But considering he was kind of a street kid, his mother left and started a new family when he was quite young, and his father was, I don't know exactly the whole story, but he wasn't around much. So my father, when he was like 7, 8 years old, was basically raising his younger brother while his older brother was running with a gang. You know, so he could probably relate to having to do for himself. I only learned this stuff from relatives. My dad never really talked about his childhood very much, but relatives kind of filled me in on what he went through as a kid. So considering my dad had no examples of parenting, and my mom married young, she got married she wasn't quite 17. I think they did a pretty good job considering their inexperience in life and everything. But yeah, they wanted us to be more self-sufficient because we were taught to be, not because we had to be, like you were saying. Matter of fact, when I met my husband, he'd been in the military, and he went through high school. He was raised by military parents. But technically speaking, I knew more about working on cars than he did when we first met. Now, he's far surpassed me since then. But in the beginning, I knew a little bit more than he did about some things on a car because I always had old clunkers, and my dad would fix them, but he would expect me to be there and help fix them also. Hi, Binary. Good to see ya. But yeah, compared to a lot of people I knew, I thought I had it rough, but compared to a lot of people I grew up with, I soon realized I didn't really have it rough. Like I said, my dad was kind of strict and he was kind of a bigot, and he wasn't very emotionally expressive. I never heard him say "I love you" until he was till I was an adult. But if we said it, he'd say me too, because he wasn't really taught that, you know. And my mother's family was just the opposite. My mother's family were like hugging and kissing every time you see each other. So odd dynamic, but
It worked.
yeah. I was lucky to grow up around a lot of cousins and aunties and uncles, and knew at least one of my grandparents growing up. Now we've all spread out and we're not really that close anymore, but I had a lot of that when I was a kid. You know, I always had cousins around, or we're going to visit cousins.
The dogs are laying down on the floor with like these pleading eyes because they want to go to bed, so they're trying to force us to go.
Oh,
They'll just silently sit there. But they look at you like, really, dude?
yeah, yeah. One of my, well, I call her our princess. She acts like one of the little yappy dogs,
Mm-hmm.
but she's a pit boxer mix and weighs about 70 pounds. And she doesn't like to go potty if the ground is wet. You know, one
Yeah.
of those. But yeah, and the other dog, we think they're the same age. We got them from the shelter at the same time because they were the. She was really withdrawn, and he was the only person she would play with. So when we adopted them together.
Mm-hmm.
And he's very puppy-like. They're both about 3 years old, we think. And she's one of those that she looks like she's always judging you.
Giving you the stink eye.
I call her the grumpy cat of dogs. But
Yeah.
but if my husband and I are talking loud, or if he's pretending to be angry or something like that, she'll get in between us. Like she's, going to make sure that neither one of us gets too close to the other one if we're angry or something, but we're almost never angry. So I will say my husband and I are very, very different from each other. I'm 11 years older. He comes from a military family, which I have relatives in the military, but my father wasn't. He wasn't able to get in because his vision wasn't good enough. We have very different backgrounds. We're on opposite sides politically, but we've had like in 20 years, we've had 5 arguments where we actually yelled at each other. So we're doing pretty good. Matter of fact, I made him really paranoid when we first started living together, because he lost his temper about something, and I snapped at him and I said, "Give me a minute," and I walked out of the room. And then later I came back in. He said, What happened? I said, "Well, I was angry and I didn't want to say something I didn't mean. And I wanted you to hear me, so I didn't want to yell it at you. So I had to go and calm down and come back into the room." So, because he was used to a lot of high drama from his ex. So, and I had been single for 10 years, so I wasn't used to any drama for a while. Well, not from a partner. So. Yeah, I miss having more animals here. Right now, uh, outside of the wildlife, we've just got the 2 dogs. When we lived at the other place, we had cats and a lot of bird houses and things like that. But we decided not to bring the cats in the beginning because we didn't want to separate the group, and now because we've got hawks and owls and possible other predators, we figured it maybe best not to bring the cats.
Yeah, they can get carried off by a fucking bird big enough.
Yeah.
Well, I've actually, is it wedge-tailed eagles that have been known to try to carry off small children?
Yes.
All of them.
They've been known to like try and make off with a small child. Yeah, they're the largest eagle, aren't they, in the world?
Yes.
That I've seen one. I remember we were driving. I was driving into the sun. It was like the early morning, and I was sort of like, I was trying to see where I was going, so I was keeping an eye on where the lines were on the road. And I sort of looked off like ahead of me, and I'm like, what the fuck is that on the road? Because I was that far away that it sort of looked like, you know, like a dog, like a good-sized dog.
Yeah.
But as I got closer, realised it was standing on two legs, and it was a fucking wedge-tailed eagle. Now, this thing would have been shit. How tall would they be standing up?
Standing up, they'd be about probably...
They'd be a good size standing up.
Yeah. About the size of a small child, at least.
Yeah, 3 or 4 feet, Scott said. So they're a good size. And I just there was no one around, so I just slowed down on the highway. And this fucking thing, it was eating like a dead rabbit or something.
Yeah.
So I must have carried it, and it's come down to have a feed. And it's sort of just, I don't know, it would have been a good minute that this whole thing sort of happened. It sort of took a while to realise that I was behind it, and I sort of looked and saw that I was there, and they can't take off straight away. They've sort of got to hop a bit and then go just because they're so big. And that's what it did. It just sort of like hopped and then just flew away, and I'm like, holy fuck.
Yeah, the town that I lived in before we moved where we are now had an eagle preserve at one end of the county and a buffalo farm on the other end of the county.
Shit.
And I almost had my grandson convinced that's where buffalo wings came from as we merged the two.
Yeah.
They recently closed the buffalo farm, though. It was a very small farm. I think they maybe had less than 20 buffaloes there.
Yeah,
but
I was about to say, have that many because they'd need lots of space, wouldn't they?
Right. But the owner fell. He was patching the roof and fell. And
oh, shit.
Injured his back. Luckily, it wasn't worse, but he injured his back to the point of, you know, nobody in his family could really keep the place going without him, and he couldn't really be on his feet a lot. And so they just decided to relocate the buffalo and closed it. They may try to do it again later, but
yeah, poor dude. There was a winery. It was a winery not far from where we live. And when the fires come through at the beginning of last year, I'm pretty sure they had fire that went through there and it destroyed the friggin', I think it was the shed where he makes the wine from the grapes that he was growing. So I think he sold up shop. Which was really sad. And I mean, like, most of New South Wales, like most of the state we were in, plus a little bit of Queensland and Victoria were like aflame. And they estimate that there was like 1 billion native species incinerated. And that's the word they used, incinerated.
Oh, wow.
Because it was that, we'd been in drought for maybe 3 years, I'd say. You know how, like, when the grass, like when it's real dry in the ground and you can see that the grass is yellow, it had been dry for so long that yellow grass wasn't there anymore. It was just like grey.
Yeah.
And it was so hot and dry that when the fire blew in, it just sort of fucking took everything with it. And some gum trees, fun fact, I say fun in a really sarcastic way, some species of gum tree explode. when exposed to heat.
Well, I knew there were some trees that did that, but I didn't know which ones.
Yeah, it's a certain kind of gum, apparently. Because, I mean, if you, like, when you burn a leaf, you can sort of see it. It's like a real, it's like an oil, isn't it? That's in the leaf.
So.
You can't hear me. Pretty sure it's like, it crackles and fizzles and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it wasn't just kangaroos and koalas and stuff. It was like platypus. There was wombats fared okay, I'm pretty sure. Maybe they got, like the odd one got caught out, but they live underground. So unless the burrow was covered up, they're usually pretty okay.
Yeah, we haven't had in our area too many major fires in quite some time. Where I used to live was like a shrimp fishing village, which you would call prawns, shrimp, whatever. And sometimes the shrimpers would go like go to other states and other areas and everything. But in the last, I'd say 20 years, a lot of outsiders, retirees, or people from other parts of the country came in. And the short version is they want to turn the town into something it's not. And they started buying up waterfront property, promising to keep it the way it is and everything. And then they built condos and ran all the shrimpers off and everything, and trying to turn it into a retirement village. So we left at a good time, because I hate to see what the town is turning into now. They're losing a lot of
Doggoville.
A lot of regular good. Yeah, there's a lot of what we call rednecks there too. But your small town. We were somewhere. We weren't like Mayberry on TV, but we were. There was a lot less violence than our surrounding counties. Taxes were lower, property was lower. Yeah, as far as the cost of living was a lot lower there than some of the surrounding towns.
Right.
Now I jokingly say it, but it's true. I live halfway between the swamps and the sea. So, I was joking around with somebody the other day. We were joking about disappearing our enemies. And I said, we've got gators and wild hogs. I don't need to bury a body. I've got garbage disposal on hand. So, but yeah, I was in there's a group called the Merkins who do music parodies,
right,
as like Freddie and Jason and those type of characters from movies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the members was on a live stream doing impromptu songs, and getting ideas from the chat stream and everything. And we were talking about, and he was trying to write a country song, and one of my topics I suggested was he cheated, so my gator's now full. And I can't remember what the other one was, but there was a couple of them we threw out there. It was just like some craziness. I like stuff like that where they can make up a song on the spot. And I watch a lot of different kinds of streams. The only community I really don't delve into too much is the beauty community, because it's of no interest to me whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm pretty hopeless with putting makeup on.
I know how. I just don't have a reason to do it, and I don't really like it, so.
Yeah, that's sort of what I used to, but I just can't be fucking bothered now.
Yeah. Well, you don't need it anyway, so. Well, to me, makeup, generally speaking, although I find some the way some women do makeup, very artistic. But generally speaking, it should highlight the certain features and downplay your flaws. And the way I like to wear it is to where you barely can tell I have it on at all.
Yeah.
But I have a ruddy complexion, so I'm more pink than pale. And it's hard to match my skin tone anyway. And plus, living in a hot climate, it's like,
You
I'll,
met.
yeah, it's gone by the time I get where I'm going, pretty much. Yeah. No binary. I don't live next to Crystal Lake, but I do have a lake close to my backyard, very close. So it's close enough. Yeah. I'm looking at it as we speak. But I'm sitting in my living room looking at the lake. Actually, we have a security light out there, so it's 5 a.m. here, basically, where I am at on the Georgia coast, almost on the coast now. I'm still in the habit of saying I live on the coast when I live in a little bit more inland now. But I'm loving my little cottage, I guess you'd call it.
Yay.
It's small, but there's just me and my husband and the 2 dogs, and it's plenty of room for us. It's just small compared to some people's homes, but it's what we wanted, and it suits us, and it's pretty and comfortable, and that's all we care about. Drama free. And we're in a position now where, where we lived before, the rents were low and everything, and we've never had a mortgage before, but my husband's in a position now where it's not a hardship for us to have a mortgage because
That makes sense.
because over the years, as we bought new vehicles and stuff like that, we try to pay off one before we get another. So we have one credit card. It's for emergencies, but we use it every now and then just to keep it active, and then pay it off, and then wait a while and use it for some little thing again, and pay it off.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm lucky that it feels a lot more isolated than it is, and it's only like 2 miles from a doctor's office, a drugstore, a convenience store, and it's a store. It's called the Dollar General, but it's like a little variety store.
Oh, okay.
Household goods and stuff like that mostly.
Mm-hmm.
Even got a little fast food place on the corner, but it's not a national chain. It's just a local family, but pretty much everything we need within a few miles. And I'm within an hour of all the kids and grandkids. So
that's the most important bit.
Yeah. And on Easter we had our first official family holiday, which we had a family gathering before in January for my husband's birthday, but Easter was the first official family holiday gathering, and then it was big enough for everybody, and that's all we cared about. Everybody got fed, everybody was comfortable, we all had a good time, no drama. The only bad downside was there were a couple of family members who either had to work or couldn't make it for another reason. So other than that, everything was great.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to keep this place clean than the other place. No carpets, just it's not wood, but it looks like hardwood. It's like a new type of laminate. It's PVC, but it looks like wood. Easy to clean.
Mm-hmm.
I see in your chat there you got binary something. Binary says that he wants 2021 Ford Bronco. My question is, does it come with an OJ holder?
That's terrible. Didn't he write a book
Well,
after he killed her?
He didn't kill her. He got found not guilty.
Oh,
Allegedly.
well.
I mean, he did get found not guilty, but he allegedly is innocent.
That's insane.
He's innocent because the police were incompetent.
Not guilty and innocent are not necessarily the same thing.
Exactly. An OJ holder. Come on, dude. OJ Simpson drove a Ford Bronco. Like, come on. It's got to have an OJ holder.
Only if it's white.
Yeah. Or OJ is in orange juice. Like, come on.
I wasn't around for that. Or if I was only little. When did he kill her?
He didn't kill her.
Well, when did he not kill her?
Ages ago.
Yeah, those kids are grown now, aren't they?
Yeah.
I just think it's terrible that they grew up without their mum.
Yeah.
Or their dad.
Well, yeah. He effectively took both of them away from them.
Allegedly.
Right.
He got found not guilty.
You sound like my husband, Scott. One of my husband's favorite hobbies is to get a scammer who calls us and tie them up for as long as possible with some long drawn out, very detailed history.
If he wants to find something amusing to do with scammers, critique them. They give you their spiel, and then you sit there and you critique them. Like they're like, okay, well, blah blah blah. You need a new phone because rah 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 rah, and you sit there and you listen to the whole thing. Then you go, well, I just like to say at the start that your cadence is all wrong, and maybe if you spoke a little bit slower, it would be easier to get through. But for me, you didn't sound believable. You're not in the character. And they go nuts, like nuts.
Well, sometimes he'll give them the long drawn out story. Sometimes he'll flirt with them, especially if they're male. Sometimes, sometimes they'll say something about, depending on the scam. I remember one, they were trying to sell him something, and he said something came up about his wife, and he said, which one? And they said, what do you mean, which one? And he started naming off a bunch of women and all his kids and, the compound and all this kind of stuff. And he started talking about this made up religion and, yeah, he likes doing stuff like that.
My thing is Jehovah's Witnesses. Right. I'm on some do not approach list for the Jehovah's Witnesses. They cross the street to get away from me. They will never come to a house they know I'm at.
They don't show up anymore.
Yeah. And I've never threatened them. I've never done any violence. All I do is I ask questions.
Oh no.
We'll start with you always start with something easy, like Noah, right? The Bible says that there were 2 of every animal. The Old Testament said there was 14 of every clean animal, but let's not go into that. And at that point, they start to get a bit suspicious because they're like, he may know the Bible, we might be in trouble.
Yeah.
So then you say, well, they were in the ark for 40 days and 40 nights. Where did they put the poo?
Would have just tipped it overboard.
What? There's 8 people on the ark. Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives.
Well, they would have all done it.
8 people wouldn't even keep up with the elephants and the bloody rhinos and the hippos.
Now, I don't know if this is true because I haven't read it enough, But someone said there are dragons mentioned in the Bible. There are unicorns mentioned in the Bible. The one animal they don't mention is the cat.
Unicorns were mentioned in the Bible. There was a fucking song written about it, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. It was sung by some Irish dudes.
Yeah.
Probably
Now-
drunk as fuck.
I personally believe that there is a higher power or force or energy or something, but I don't follow a religion.
Did you know? Here's another one that gets me in trouble. The Bible proves evolution.
Oh, Christ.
We need to get you to talk to G-Man.
Oh, God. He'd have an absolute aneurysm if he talked to Scott.
Yeah, because
Because-
Scott would be like my husband. He'd be calm and cool and, very intelligent, and G-Man would lose his crap.
Keep, like, muting you.
Have you seen the one where I spanked Elmo?
No, I don't think so, but I wouldn't be surprised.
I was on Rick Productions stream, and I was annoying Rick while baiting Emo. And then this is the last time that Emo went off Facebook for good.
That was YouTube.
YouTube, sorry. So I'm just throwing these comments out. And next thing he comes belting on, and he just starts with, you're a fucking idiot. You're a fucking idiot. And it went downhill for him from there.
Scott turned around and said, "Who?" There was only Rick and him on there. I'm like, who the fuck do you think?
Oh, Elsie, I'm sure you've heard that song Plantation Man.
Oh, God,
yeah.
yes.
Well, Booty Wart did a remix.
Yeah.
I haven't heard the whole thing. I heard a piece of it, but I like Booty Wart's work. But yeah, I don't have. Well, we haven't had any religious people come to our door here. We're too remote, I guess. But in my old place, we didn't have Jehovah's Witnesses that went door to door. We had the Mormons going door to door. But I don't blame them because they were referred to us because my son used to go to a Mormon church when he lived with his mother.
Oh, okay.
So, and they're not as hardcore in our area as they are some places. Well, it depends on the individuals, of course, but but yeah, the Jehovah's Witnesses that I knew personally weren't very in line with their parents, I'd say. So
Yeah, we used to, group of friends of mine used to play a game we used to call Jehovah baiting. Right? It's a point system. So if you can get a Jehovah, you know how they come in pairs, all right? If you can get one of them to be looking something up in the Bible, that's 1 point. If you can get both of them to be looking up different things at the same time, that's 5 points. All right? So the whole point is to test how much they know. So you just bring up these really obscure points. And of course, one starts looking up, and you turn on the other one and you just throw something else at them, and they're just looking through theirs as well. It's great fun. It is awesome fun.
No wonder they don't want to talk to you.
You can believe anything you want, right? The second you try and foist it on me, I'm taking yours away.
exactly. What I like to do with the really, really pushy people of any religion is point, especially the redneck bigot ones, is point out Jesus wasn't white, that Genesis sounds like a episode of Star Trek. I mean, because aliens would explain a lot of things. Just saying. And what was the other thing I like to talk to him about? There was some other point I used to like to make, and I can't remember what it was now, but Yeah.
Well,
Oh, bring up Lilith.
oh
don't
yeah,
like-
they don't like talking about Lilith.
Yeah.
Or Samael.
And my husband was born to. He was raised Catholic, converted to Mormonism. Then he, because of his wife, first wife. Then he studied Shinto when he was in between, and mostly goes to Southern Baptist churches now. But
See, I'm a big fan of churches that put on a feed.
For fuck's sake.
a lot of Baptist churches like to feed you. Yeah. I will say this.
Stuff.
I grew up going to a Baptist church, and they would have dinners for any reason they could think of. There was always like supper on the ground, or some wedding or birthday or something going on. And when I was going to get married to one of my exes, when we were talking about getting married, the ladies of the church at the time I was going to at the time basically said all I really had to do was show up with the dress and the groom, because they were going to give me a covered dish reception. And that sounds very hokey to some people, or redneck or whatever, but I thought it was a very sweet gesture that all these ladies were willing to cook and put out all this food, and I wouldn't have to do a thing but show up, pretty much. I just thought it was very sweet. As it turned out, we never did get married, me and that
For the feed anyway.
Oh my god.
But yeah. But a lot of Southern Baptists believe in feeding people, whether it's a funeral, a wedding, or whatever else. Yeah.
In Ireland, do you know what the difference is between a wedding and a funeral?
The liquor.
One less drinker.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a big scam going on. Short version. I'll try to give it the short version of around the time Virgo did the GoFundMe for Catnat's family.
Right.
This other person over from Brian Gums, or Jabba the Gums.
Oh,
News Now. Yeah. One of his people came over into another stream and was talking about, oh, her husband just died. She needed money for this, that, and the other thing, and got mad because we called her out on her BS. Well, not me personally. I got it second. It already happened by the time I watched it and everything. But yeah, she's still scamming people. And people were trying to give, because she was saying all of the cost was going to fall on her, because even though they were split up for a couple of years, that she's still legally married to him. Come to find out, his daughter and that family and the fiance had already taken care of all that. But she was just trying to scam, and everything. And people were giving her suggestions like, well, if you're a member of a church, they could do certain things that will reduce the expense. You could order your own casket or your own urn off online, and this, that, the other, trying to help her find ways of, lowering the cost and everything. She didn't really want to hear any of that. And that's one of the clues we had that she was scamming, because she couldn't give a figure of how much she needed, and she kept backtracking and contradicting herself and all this kind of stuff. And that's why News New England ended up going after Virgo and the GoFundMe, because for the backlash against one of his people, quote unquote, because we dared to question her when she was trying to get money from people that didn't even like her. And people were willing to do it if it was legitimate.
Yeah.
Because of the situation. But it just so happened to pop up around the same time. I mean, the man did die, but she wasn't involved in his life anymore. She didn't tell that part right away, So It was just but it got me thinking about pre-planning and everything. So me and my husband have been talking about a lot that lately, taking care of, as much as we can ourselves, so the kids don't have to worry about it when the time comes.
Yeah.
I want a Viking funeral, but they're illegal here in Australia.
There's some place where they're legalized again.
Because it's technically littering. To push you out, stand a boat, and set it on fire. Technically, it's littering.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Well, it's like someone got arrested one time, or got threatened with arrest. I think she ended up with a ticket because she put her husband's ashes in a flagpole.
Oh.
And they considered that mishandling of human remains or something like that. This was years and years ago.
Oh, come on, you can put your fucking loved one's ashes in a fucking firework or a dildo.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
somebody said this a while ago as a joke, and I got to thinking about it, and I kind of like the idea of having my cremains, my ashes, put in an hourglass, so I could be around for family game night. But then I thought to myself, yeah, it's a fun idea. But there was another point I was thinking. Oh, there's a lady I follow, and I can't remember what her name is now, but she's a female mortician. She's fairly young. Her name's Caitlin Dougherty. But she was talking about natural burial and how a lot of people don't know you have that option in some states. There are some places where reasons, like in Louisiana, the water table is so high and everything, it's not it wouldn't be allowed there. But in other parts of the country, it is an option, because all these things they sell you, like the concrete liner and the all this other extra stuff for the casket and all that kind of stuff. A lot of that stuff is completely unnecessary. A lot of people don't know that if you want a cremation, but you also want to have a viewing first, you rent a casket for the day. And they just tear out the lining and they have it relined again for someone else to use again, because
Whoa.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Holy shit.
Yeah. It
So
depends on the state. Yeah.
No, my mum got fucking cremated, so she got.
Yeah, but
No, they had her in a box.
oh my God.
Well, it's really hard because my mum's 5'1", right? So
She's a tiny
it's a
woman.
waste of space getting a full-length casket, right? Because there's like a foot and a half below it. You could almost put someone else under there. So we just went the cheapest casket we could get, short enough to not be a waste of space. Because that's what you do. Knowing she was going to turn into a pile of ash, it's a waste of time just buying an expensive casket.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I thought she would have had like input as to what the fuck happened.
She was fucking dead. She didn't care.
Yeah, but wouldn't she have had like
She probably
requests? No one asked her.
did. Yeah. We didn't listen, but we asked.
Oh.
Well, my thing is, I've always been insecure about my looks, and I got arthritis early on. And, like I said, I've had all these issues and everything. Luckily, it's not been as bad as some people have to go through. But my body has never been anything that I was crazy about. So I don't really care what happens to it when I'm gone. But when my mother-in-law passed a couple years ago, we ended up having her cremated, and I ordered, and I looked at the urns at the funeral home. We have what we call it a family funeral home. It's, one that we have used within my family for many years. But I looked at the urns they had, and then somebody suggested I look online, and I found a beautiful white metallic urn with white it's got white enamel, and it's got a picture of a red cardinal sitting on a flower that looks like a Cherokee rose. And cardinals were her favorite bird. Now that was perfect for her, and we probably would have gotten it at whatever cost it was, but it was under $50 online. And they the funeral home offered services of the chapel, but because of COVID, we didn't do that. But we did have a small memorial service for her at no cost to us. Someone else donated flowers. So the only expenses were really the cremation. And we borrowed a little money for that, and we've since paid it off. But, ours was relatively minor costs compared to what some people do. But it was still a very dignified and touching event, in her memory. The biggest problem was that was just when COVID was first starting to come out and everything. And so a lot of people that would normally have come didn't because they were afraid of getting sick.
Yep.
But
Yeah. My mum died a year ago Friday. Friday just gone. So it was right when COVID was in full swing. But we used to joke with Mum all the time. She used to say she wanted to get cremated, and we're like, well, that's too expensive. How about we just dig a hole and pour some fuel on you? We will go all out and put 98 in there. No 91.
What would she say to that?
She'd go up. It was great. It was great. We'd get some, off-cut wood from Bunnings, and
You're a shit-stirring little prick.
so you say that like it's a bad thing.
Poor Mum.
What?
well, my husband also was the two things he's mentioned was the Viking funeral and being thrown out of an airplane over the body farm.
Ha!
Because the original body farm is in Tennessee, and that's where he's from. Well, that's where he grew up. He wasn't born there, but that's where he grew up, was in Tennessee. But do you know there's a years and years long waiting list to donate your remains to the body farm?
What the fuck?
You know what the body farm is, right?
Yeah.
I love the idea of getting dropped in there. Some poor researcher's walking along going, oi, we got an extra corpse here. What the fuck's going on?
Well, he figures, number one, he'll finally get to understand what it's like to jump from an airplane. Not really, but the idea is there. And also the idea that he will help somebody learn, from it, But on the same note, I thought, if it was entirely up to me, I would say donate my remains to a teaching university, because a lot of times you can do that and they will make arrangements to pick up the remains, and they will use it for whatever purpose. And then when they're done with it, it's usually about a year, and then they'll have the remains cremated and sent back to the family at their expense.
No.
But ultimately, I said that my family should do whatever makes them feel better, because funeral services are really for them. It has nothing to do with me so much,
If I was going to get forced to get buried, I would want an MP3 player with a long-term battery in it and a little speaker, and I want that put in to randomly play hello.
Yeah. Yeah, my husband also told my son that he would leave him more in the will if he rigged his casket to open and start sitting him up in the middle of his service. And he's threatened to pay someone ahead of time to put firecrackers in his pockets and then be cremated.
I have suggested that before I die, I'm going to swallow a couple of bullets.
Because if you die of quote unquote natural causes, if you have a extended illness, they don't usually do an autopsy.
Exactly. So suddenly you're put in the furnace, and then bang, 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 bang.
See, my husband doesn't really like to have these kinds of conversations when we're actually making plans. But in theory, he likes to come up with these ideas. But when it comes time to putting things on paper, he doesn't want to talk about it. And I can kind of understand that, especially this past couple of years. But I lost a nephew several years ago, and it's like I got very angry at. I'll just say God, for lack of a better terminology, because this was a young man that was extremely likable. He was very dedicated to his church. He had a great sense of humor. He was a little bit of a prankster, but never anything, malicious. I mean, he always had people laughing and everything. And he was, like I said, he was a normal kid, but he was 99% a good kid and everything. He got in a little bit of trouble here and there, like every kid does. He was like 16. No, he was almost 17 and everything. And he got seriously ill. They thought he had appendicitis. It turned out to be a bowel obstruction. And then, but through all that, he never fully recovered, and he ended up passing away. And I was so angry because of all the people that do evil out there in the world. And it's like he took one of the, in my mind at the time, I was feeling like God took one of the good ones, and it pissed me off. But
I had a cousin going
the
back.
one, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I had a cousin going back 4 years ago now. They're at a family gathering, and one of them wanted to leave, so they moved one of the cars out of the way. And when they're moving the other one, she's walked behind the car as the handbrake released itself and crushed her against the wall of the garage.
Oh no!
So she was conscious through the whole thing. She's got people coming around. She's saying her goodbyes and all that sort of stuff. Because she knew from watching all the medical shows that she did that as soon as they moved that car, she was gonna die. So they held off until probably 10 minutes before they moved the car to bring her daughter in, because the daughter was like 18 months old. And no, it was just a shit show.
Yeah, with my nephew, somewhere along the line, one of the times he was in the hospital, they discovered he'd had a stroke. And if you can imagine having a stroke at 16, 17 years old, and it's like, as far as we could tell, his mind was still sharp, but he couldn't communicate it as well. The only, I can't even call it a bright side, but the benefit that we got from it is throughout all the procedures he had, we discovered that our family has a rare condition in some of us. It's a hereditary condition called Wilson's disease, which ultimately was a good deal of why he was sick for so long, where your body doesn't expel certain minerals, especially copper, and it builds up in your system and interferes with the healing process. But diagnosing it is simple, but it's so uncommon that they don't look for it unless they're alerted to it. I mean, one of the first things you do is you check the irises of their eye, and there's certain indicators that you look for. And if you know what you're looking at, if you make your doctor aware, they know what to look for, and it can be spotted, and then they'll do further blood tests and things like that, and then it can be treated. But it often goes untreated because number one, it's rare, and number two, unless you know to look for it, you'll miss it. Or very commonly it's missed. And there's got to be other conditions like that out there too. So like I said, but since now we know, we can tell his younger sister, his nieces, his, other members of the family, hey, you might want to mention to your doctor, we have this in our family. So, so they can just check it out, just in case there's an issue later on down the line. They know whether or not that might have anything to do with it, and it can be treated before it gets to be more serious condition.
No.
So, but I'd
My
never
fam-
heard of that before.
My family's weird one too. Like, I've got a Jerry Springer family. You have no idea. But I have 2 spleens. Like, there's a condition where you can have an auxiliary spleen, which is you have 2 spleens that make up the size of one. I actually have 2 complete spleens. My sister has it. My sister's daughter has it. My grandmother on my dad's side had 4 kidneys.
Wow.
We're freaks, okay? We're freaks.
Well, a lot of times you hear of that when you have, like, I can't remember the correct term for it, but it's when your body absorbs a twin. But I
Yep.
haven't heard of it happening that often in one family.
Now,
I come
all I
from
know, my doctor had heard of auxiliary spleens, but never 2
Uh-huh.
complete spleens.
Does that mean I can harvest your organs?
Well, if you've seen the movie Mystery Men, there's a hero called the Spleen that farts a lot.
I've
So,
heard of it. Yes. Wasn't it
So-
play? Didn't he play? Was that the one that Paul Rubens played?
I think so. It's got that Janine Garofalo
Yeah,
and
her
Hank
dad.
in it.
Yeah, her dad's skull was in a bowling ball. He talked to her
Yeah.
telepathically.
Yes.
I love
And you
that
had-
movie.
And you have a guy called the Sphinx, and his superpower is he can stand really still.
See, my superpower is invisibility. Because when you get to a certain age, especially in the South, and you're a little old lady, you can be invisible very easily. Matter of fact, we used to have this fantasy of our family becoming private investigators. My husband and his might as well be brother would be the muscle, and our daughters would be the decoys because they're all very pretty. I don't know if you've ever seen my Facebook page, but I have to say myself, between us, we've got 3 beautiful daughters, and I've done background searches, and I know how to do research to a certain extent, and I can learn to do better. And plus, I have the gift of being invisible. So, between us, we would be good investigators. None of us have any business savvy to run a business.
Well, that'd be someone else's problem. Like, you just go and do the other stuff, and
And
then it
in Georgia, you have to have past police experience or to be certified through the police department to be a private investigator. My husband has a military history, but no police history. Yeah, it's ridiculous to me. The closest thing we have is that I worked as a dispatcher for a short time for the sheriff's office, and I worked as an office worker for a different sheriff's office. But outside of that, and knowing a lot of police officers personally.
Couldn't you walk up to a cop and say, "Can I adopt you?"
Probably not. Now, I do know a couple of detectives quite well. As a matter of fact, one of the detectives I know from my old job is also a ghost hunter. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, we were used to joke around and say that she could be my husband's other wife so that we could bring her into the family. Because I don't know if you know, we've had an open marriage before. Right now, we're not actively doing so because we just don't want the drama, and COVID's not helping. Everything is like that.
No,
But,
it wouldn't.
but it's a short version of with my medical issues, going through menopause and all that other stuff. It's like the time my libido was going down, his started going up, and there have been times I told him earlier today, I said, I wish COVID would hurry up and go away because we both need a wife
See,
or
I always
another wife.
tell people that polyamory is like it's great because you have say you have a third person in the relationship, you have 3 incomes.
Ideally. Now, like in our case, we wouldn't want a third person living with us. We just want, like, I want him to have a girlfriend sometimes. She could be my buddy and his friend with benefits. We actually had the perfect person a few years ago, but she fell in love and got into a relationship and moved on and, all that. But it was like she was friends with both of us. Matter of fact, there was one incident where he had gone up to visit her, and when he left and he was on his way back, because it was in another town, and he left on the way back, she said, "Thanks for letting me. By the way, I sent you some banana bread." That was one of our conversations. And I wouldn't recommend it for everybody. And before I met my husband, I was not and a matter of fact, in the early stages of our marriage, I was not in a place where that would have worked for us. But over time, it developed into that, So I would recommend the very most important top 5 rules: open communication, transparency, more communication, and everybody has to be on the same page. You have to have boundaries and rules and be clear about them and all in agreement. And, everybody has to know about the other. No secrets that way. We didn't want any married women or people. We didn't want, because I'm not going to be physically involved with her. It's just him and her. But he wants us to at least know each other so she knows what the deal is. I know what the deal is, etc. Full transparency, that kind of thing. And it takes time to do that. And we had a few bumps in the road, misunderstandings and things like that. But, for a while it worked. Right now we're not interested, but I think it will work for some people and others it won't. Because we met too many people who wanted to be swingers, and that's not what we wanted. He wanted someone he could have a relationship with, but not a committed relationship to the point of it being equal to our relationship. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like I said, he had been in an open marriage before. I hadn't. But like I said, over time, it grew to the point where I was the one who suggested it. I did have a boyfriend for a short time. And the first time he met my husband, it was really funny because we had mutual friends and he was over helping one of our friends with some yard work. And my husband came over to help also. And I was driving the truck to drop my husband off, and he came out to the truck to talk to me, and my husband got out of the truck with a machete. And it scared him because he was all of 5'5" and my husband's 6 feet tall. It was really funny. But he was a really sweet guy, and he was good for my ego and my self-esteem. And he's now happily married, and it we were friends more than anything else. And like I said, at that point in time in my life, it was a good thing. And then,
Yes.
we were actually friends on Facebook for a while, and then he started wanting to talk to me, about his problems and everything at the beginning of the marriage. And I'm like, well, does she know you're talking to me? And he said, oh, she knows all about you. I said, but does she know you're talking to me? He said, no. I said, then we're not going to do this. If she doesn't know, we shouldn't be talking.
Yeah. See, I'm a terrible liar. So
Me too.
I just tell Elsie the truth, and that's how it is.
Right. I mean, sometimes you don't want to hear the truth, but it still needs to be on the up and up. If you don't have any secrets to keep, you don't have anything to worry about.
Yes.
I can keep other people's secrets, but not my own.
Yeah, that's how I am.
Because if you ask me a direct question about something involving someone else, I'll say you need to go talk to that person.
Yep.
You know, I won't confirm or deny anything. I'll say you just need to go talk to that person yourself. You know. Yeah, I'm sometimes too open about things when it comes to myself, but like I said, I got tired of people with skeletons in their closets, so I just took the closet door off of my let all my skeletons out. Less to keep up with, especially as I get older and my memory is wonky. I might not remember what I had for breakfast, but I could tell you most of the lyrics to songs from the 70s.
Oh, exactly. That's how it works. Yep. I'm gonna have to keep on motoring, so I might have to bail up here.
Yeah, I keep forgetting about the time difference there or
Yeah,
here. One
it's
of us.
not too late yet, but I have to get up at Sparrow Fart to go to work.
What time is it over there?
It is 8:15
Oh, okay.
in the evening. So
Yeah.
I still gotta have a shower and do all sorts of weird, wide, and wonderful things before bed.
And you
So
need some relaxation time too.
yeah, because I'm now interim manager. It's
Yeah.
it's awesome fun.
Yeah, matter of fact, in a little while I think I'm gonna find a good Stephen King audiobook and relax. I'm one of those weird people. Stephen King relaxes me.
Tommy Knockers is or Needful Things is one of his good books.
Actually, what I'm listening to now is one of the newer books. It's called The Institution.
All
And
right.
in like the second chapter, it mentions one of my neighboring towns about him, the one of the main characters stopping in there, and Stephen King used to come through here on his way to his home in Florida. He used to like to drive from Maine to Florida because he didn't
Yeah,
like
because most of his books were set in Maine, weren't they?
right. But yeah, go relax. And I appreciate y'all coming in and chatting with me because I was bored and couldn't sleep and didn't feel like doing anything else besides the dishes. They'll be there in a couple of
They'll be
more
there.
minutes.
If,
I got
if you've been there long enough, the elves do it.
not here. My dogs offer to help, but my husband doesn't like that. So
Alrighty, I
all
will talk to you later.
right, please give hugs to Elsie for me.
I'll do that anyway.
Okay, good. You take care now.
I will do. See
All
ya.
right, bye bye.